All right, welcome everybody to our first executive committee meeting for the year. Thank you for all the hard work that all of you have done in your various committees this week so far that brings us to this point. I am just so grateful to all of our committee members, our chairs, our vice chairs, and I believe everything has gone smoothly so far. If it hasn't, nobody's told me otherwise, and please don't. But no, I appreciate everybody. So before we get started, I need to remind everybody that you are advised of your duty under the State Government's Ethics Act to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflict, and you're instructed to refrain from participating in any matter before this committee with respect to which you have a conflict or a potential or appearance of conflict. Do we have any comments? All right. The first item on our agenda today is council meetings on October the 19th, 2022 and October the 21st, 2022, which are on SharePoint. And that comes as a recommendation.
You made a motion and I'll make it second.
Okay. All right. Any discussion, any questions about the minutes? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is the approval of executive committee meeting minutes from October the 20th, 2022. Those are also in your materials, and hopefully everybody's had a chance to review those. Are there any comments or questions? Otherwise, I think we need a second. We have a motion.
Second.
Forgot one anyway. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Motion carries. All right. Now, I'll turn the mic over to our esteemed President-elect for our finance and audit report.
Thank you, Madam President. The financial materials are in your materials on SharePoint, and we'll talk about those. The first item for consideration would be the fourth quarter financial statements. And we would, the Finance Committee would recommend to the Executive Committee that they approve they recommend approval to these to the Council. So the Finance and Audit Committee recommends to the EC that they approve the fourth quarter financial statements to the Council for adoption or accounting.
Requires no seconds. It comes from the Finance and Audit Committee. I'm sure you have taken your deep dive into the financial statements, and if anybody at this time have any questions, comments. Otherwise, all those in favor of recommending adoption to the Council, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
There is another agenda item in connection with the proposed budget, and that is recommendation regarding the compensation of the Executive Director for 2023. We will address that issue in closed session at the end of the agenda items here. That's right. We sent you all a revised budget earlier, and it includes recommendations regarding compensation. So that's already included in the proposed budget that you have in your materials, and we will vote on later.
So we will come back to item 2.2 later.
So the revised budget is not going to change the managed services line.
We'll talk about that. Okay. All right. We'll be back. All right. Item 2.3.
The budgets for the Client Security Fund and the Legal Specialization Board, CLE Education, Lab, IOTA, and Paralegal Certification are in your materials on SharePoint as well. And the Finance and Audit Committee would recommend that the Executive Committee recommend the adoption of those budgets to the Council.
And no seconds required. It's a recommendation from the Finance and Audit Committee. Any questions, comments? Otherwise, those in favor of recommending these particular budgets for these different boards and agencies to the Council, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is a proposed late fee for specialization annual dues asked to address this issue, and specifically, the Board of Legal Specialization requests approval of a $50 late fee to be assessed against specialists who fail to timely pay their annual dues of $150. We've had some issues with that, and we believe that this may facilitate the more prompt payment of those dues so that we're not chasing you for those dues or those fees as the year proceeds. And that is the recommendation of the Finance and Audit Committee from that, as to that item.
Yeah, no second is required. Any questions, comments? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
All the specialists in here, we don't have to worry about it. We're all paid up.
That's right.
We looked at that.
We checked on that, yeah. So when that was brought up initially, I looked at it and went,
Yeah.
okay, moving right along. Mr. Brown?
The next item is, I guess, more of a matter of, for information regarding the request that we received to establish dues waiver for military spouses. That material is also on SharePoint. And we are going to appoint a study committee to address that matter at some point. And the Finance and Audit Committee will make that recommendation as well.
This is an information only item, so subcommittee formed by the Finance and Audit Committee to study this issue, so that was for information only, no vote is necessary on that.
We'll be appointing that study committee in due course. Madam President will handle that.
This is just as an FYI for anyone who's looking at their regular agenda. There are 3 items on a supplemental agenda, and that's one of those items in your executive committee folder on SharePoint.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. The next item is on the supplemental agenda, right, Peter? And that relates to authorization to pursue some statutory amendments, primarily because of the crossover deadlines that are required. If Peter, you want to quickly address that?
Sure. So there are 2 subcommittees that are going to be studying some potential changes that would require statutory changes. We don't know what they will determine or recommend. However, it's likely that if they are going to recommend pursuing some statutory changes, then that will need to be filed, if we need to file it in a bill, before the April meeting because of the bill filing deadline. And so this is just in case something needs to happen. This is asking the officer, give the officers the authority to instruct me to seek that if that's where the subcommittee has determined we need to go. But that's it's also possible we won't need to do that if we can amend a bill that we've already filed later on in the session. We just wanted to have that just in case we needed to do something early.
Just to make sure everybody understands what we're really talking about is we are studying deferral program and issues committee.
Well, this is the study of grievance fees and DHC fees, and this would be, if we wanted to start charging a fee for participation in the trust account compliance program.
For a deferral.
Right.
Right. That would have to have legislative improvement. And if we wanted to waive the dues for the spouses of active duty members, that also would require statutory change. And so if it's decided that's a good idea, then Peter needs the authority to be able to try to make that happen. Does that make sense to everybody? No. It's getting late in the week.
One amendment would be pursuant to 8432.2, and another would be 8434 regarding the waiver. The other would be regarding the deferral program for the record.
So those, so no need for a second on that?
Yeah, we do.
Because you're granting authority.
Yes, the Finance and Audit Committee recommends, requests that the council give the state bar officers the authority to instruct the legislative liaison Peter to pursue these amendments as you just described. That's the request.
No second is needed. Any questions? Need more clarification? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we go into the appointments report.
We met and considered the various openings and recommendations that we need to make with respect to those openings, and I'll run through those in due course. The first is the appointments to the Lawyer Assistance Program Board. There are 3 appointments there. And after deliberation, and considering that Ted Edwards and Paul Nagy are not eligible for reappointment, we have, and we recommend that the following appointments occur. Takia Lewis Blaylock as 1 appointment, and then William Ingraham as the 2nd appointment. There is 1 member that is eligible for reappointment, and that is Crawford Cleveland, and we recommend the reappointment of Crawford Cleveland.
Yeah, this is some recommendation from the Appointments Committee. Any questions? Comments?
I don't know if this makes a difference just for minutes, but where it says Crawford Cleveland on the first, in the first paragraph, it says council or member, and it should be lawyer.
It's
It's
right.
not a council.
He's a
You're right.
volunteer.
Oh, so they're considered council.
He's a volunteer member.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I need to recuse.
Okay.
Nope.
All right.
You remember?
It's such a close vote, I'm sure. All right, with that recusal, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving right on.
There are
Thank you, Takia.
we need to appoint a chair and vice chair for LAP. And after consideration and discussions, the Appointments Committee recommend Warren Savage as chair and as vice chair, Crawford Cleveland.
Don't let it for yourself. I like to give, I would like to recuse myself. Said in Chicago, right?
All right, any other comments?
That's
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
We have 2 appointments for the North Carolina State Bar Foundation Board. Herb Hankins and Barbara Wire are not eligible for reappointment, and so the committee recommends that we appoint Robert Wicker and Barbara Christie to fill those 2 vacancies. So those are our recommendations for appointment.
Any comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Moving along to the NC Leaf appointments. We have 2 candidates eligible for reappointment is William R. Purcell, and the committee recommends that he be reappointed. We also recommend the appointment of James Grant, which we are told, and we were requested to make that appointment. We are told that is sort of permitted under the bylaws of NC Leaf. So those are the recommendations from the Appointments Advisory Committee for the filling of those 2 openings, Mr. Purcell and Mr. Grant.
Questions, comments? None, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
There is 1 appointment for the DHC. Fred, before having been elected, he has resigned, and we need to replace Kim on the DHC. This appointment will basically be for the remainder of his term, or through the end of June, the new, and then the person will be eligible for reappointment thereafter. And so we recommend that Mac McCauley be appointed to fill the remainder of Fred's term, and he'll be eligible for reappointment in the next round of reappointments to the DHC. So that is a recommendation of the committee.
Any comments? Questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. There's an item on the supplemental agenda regarding a resolution requesting Kimberly A. Herrick be designated as an emeritus member of the North Carolina Law Board of Examiners. I'm not sure, did you say that to everybody, Peter?
Yeah, it's in that supplemental agenda, and the resolution from the board is also in the folder. This
And it
just happened today, though.
And it was, I emailed it to the full council as well.
So the North Carolina Board of Law Examiners request that the state bar approve the designation of former board chair Kimberly Herrick as an emeritus member of the board. An emeritus member of the board can assist with character and fitness examinations and grading of the bar examination. And as Al said, the resolution is in your materials. So everybody had a chance or an opportunity to look at that. Is there any questions, concerns? If not, I need a motion that we approve this request.
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Not all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda are the proposed, thank you, Tom.
Sure.
Proposed amendment for adoption, the rule amendment for public meeting. Received any comments from these rule amendments. And unless I have an objection from anybody on this committee, I'm going to take these amendments together as one vote. So 4.1 deals with proposed amendments to the discipline and disability rules. 4.2, amendments to the rule on standing committees of the council. And this is the rule amendment that designates access to justice as a standing committee. Rule 4.3, amendments to the rules governing IOLTA. And 4.4, proposed amendments to the policies and rules concerning prepaid legal service plans. First of all, is there any objection to taking those votes as a group? Anybody want any of those items pulled for discussion? Okay, otherwise,
So moved.
need a motion?
So moved.
I need a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is ratification and an action that was taken by the officers between the quarterly meetings. So you are now hopefully aware that we, according to directive from the legislature, had created a review panel for certain disciplinary cases or grievance procedure. So at October meeting, the council voted to publish proposed rule amendments governing this new grievance review procedure. And in order to enable the grievance committee to proceed promptly with grievance reviews as required by the statute, the council should also have been asked to adopt the rule amendments on an interim basis before final approval by the North Carolina Supreme Court. Therefore, during the fourth quarter after the annual meeting, I, as the president, in consultation with the other officers and staff, we approved the interim adoption of the proposed rule amendments. And so we are now asking that you ratify my actions. Pretty basic. Any questions? If not, is there a motion?
Asking for forgiveness.
Asking for forgiveness, yeah, doing asking for forgiveness. We wanted to do what we were asked to do by the General Assembly. We wanted to do it without delay.
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries.
Marcy, so these are recommendations to the council.
Okay,
Sorry, the motions will all reflect that you voted to recommend to the council.
recommend to the council to adopt or ratify by behavior.
So,
And we're all new at this. We're trying to get all the lingo down, everything right. Proposed amendments for publication. So we have, one item, and I am going to turn this over to a person who is much more knowledgeable about what we're trying to do here, and that may be Mr. Peter Bullock.
So this is a continuation of the process that we have been on now for a year or so on revising the CLE rules and rethinking, restructuring the CLE program. In terms of what has changed since the last quarter, there's only been one change, and that's in your materials in terms of what our proposal is. The board met and is now proposing to have the reporting period that was proposed to be a 3-year reporting period for 36 hours, reduced to a 2-year reporting period and have it be a 24-hour requirement over 2 years. If you recall, we also, in the last quarter, increased the amount of carryover credit to be 12 hours, and that still stays the same here. The only change from the last quarter is reducing the requirements from a 3-year period to a 2-year period. We took to heart a lot of the comments we've received over the year, including from Gordon and others about the purpose of CLE being maintaining continued competency. And the fear that if you have a full 3-year period, you could go a substantial amount of time without having to take CLE to maintain your competency. In addition, we worked and spoke with providers, including the Bar Association, who I think would be much more comfortable with a 2-year period in terms of planning and strategic planning and trying to figure out how many people are going to be coming to CLEs over the course of a reporting period. So we took that into heart. The initial reason for a 3-year period, one of them was increased efficiencies for the staff, and the other was for more flexibility for lawyers. We think we are still reaching both of those goals with a 2-year reporting period. Some of the other changes that we're proposing in the rules in terms of eliminating the annual report requirement and the way we collect fees will increase efficiency already for our staff, and so we think 2 years is will still help us only administering the requirements to lawyers for half of the lawyers each year. And then as it relates to flexibility, I think having 12 hours of carryover but a 2-year period to complete your hours still provides additional flexibility for the lawyers here in North Carolina. So that's the change that's happened since last quarter. What we've also done is just, and so you don't have to track all the different track changes that have happened all throughout this whole process. In your materials, you have a full set of proposed amendments to the rules that just show what our final set of proposed amendments are. I've also included a quick reference guide for each rule. What we are asking the executive committee to do, what the CLE board is asking, is to publish these full set of rules along with an accompanying article that I will write in the journal that both explains the reasons and goes into detail on what the rule changes are for one additional quarter, and then be able to come back in April and look at over any additional comments we might receive, and hopefully at that point bring it to a vote with the idea that these rules would become effective March of 2024. That is the current recommendation and request from the CLE board. Happy to answer any specific questions that you might have.
Any questions, Peter? I understand that specialist rules don't change. We still have to have the same amount of hours per year.
This has no effect on
Those of us
specialists.
in the room that are specialists. We have to pay our dues on that. All right.
So Alice asked what would be your hourly requirements in the 2-year period. You'd have to have 24 hours of credit, and then 4 hours of ethics, 1 hour of technology, and 1 hour of substance abuse mental health training, which is now changed in the rules to be called professional well-being. So it was, you have 1 hour of that every 2 years, 1 hour technology, so that kind of washes out because right now you have to do technology every year and substance abuse every 3. So this still washes out, and then ethics is just multiplied from 2 to 4 because it's a 2-year period.
So we need a motion that we ask the council to publish both the full set of amendments and your article.
You don't have to do the article,
Just,
do the proposal.
but I'm just making sure. I need permission.
I mean, written it, yes.
Yeah, sure Peter
A
does.
motion that we make Peter write an article. A motion, we need a motion.
So moved,
All
Madam
right.
President. Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, now we're going to our reports. Catherine King, you should be our first report of the day.
Thank you, it's gonna be exhaustive. First, I'd like to ask David Johnson if he could report on, authorized practice litigation that's been authorized by the executive committee.
Well, there's only one item, and that's Valerie Arroyo, and we got the permanent injunction against Mr. Arroyo in early December. She promptly filed a Rule 59 motion to reconsider, which she is trying to get calendared next month sometime. But there may be light at the end of the tunnel.
Thank you, David.
And the rest of the litigation is explained in this report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Nobody wants me to answer questions. Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Make sure we give you enough time to ask questions. All right, thank you, Catherine. So, Mr. Evan Rawls.
Right here.
There you go. Oh, you're all staring at you.
What you need to know.
Need to know about PMBR.
It's on hold right now until we wait until the budgeting of the state bar. When I last reported, we had a great conversation. It was Leonore, Mac McCarley, and myself with Lawyers Mutual. Lawyers Mutual has indicated an interest in sponsoring the PMBR cybersecurity platform. We gave the numbers to them. There's 2 sets of numbers. There's a setup number of $10,000 and then an annual maintenance fee of $15,000. And this is a far cry from the other quote we got that was $125,000. So it was a very productive meeting that Leonore, Mack, and I had. And so we're waiting, and I guess I'll need to talk to Todd or whoever is managing the budget here, or Alice instead of Peter, just to make sure we have a line item, and once we have a line, well.
It's in capital expenditure.
Yes.
It's not a line item expense, but it's recapitalizing it.
Well, whatever it is, you know.
It's there.
I'll
It's
take
there.
that
Money
as
there.
It's there.
information.
You got green, it's there.
Yes, and then we'll make it happen, and perhaps this part of PMBR will come to a close. However, I did suggest that there perhaps be Chapter 2 PMBR with the succession plan, which would be an ideal fit, I believe, for that. Was it from the Issues Committee about preparing a succession plan?
So the amount in the capital expenditure is $15,065.
So we got to come up with another $10,000.
No, it's there.
It's also, Peter, what are you saying?
There's part of this is a capital expense that it shows in the budget, and then part of this is included in the IT budget that is an internal staff budget where you just see the top lines, but it's in there, all of it.
Well, I looked at it, I didn't see.
Yeah.
So the total amount is
What I
how
was
much?
looking at.
Yes.
So,
So
I think the total amount is 25.
but that's where we are. We'll start moving forward now that we have got a line.
But we're happy to get any sponsorship that Lawyers Mutual might want to provide. We didn't
This
budget for that.
PMBR is Evan's way of staying at the state bar for indefinite. So.
We love having him.
Amen.
Just
Thank
like
you.
herding cats on this one.
It's the Roger Tripp
method.
method.
It was quite a venture.
Well, we appreciate you taking that journey to get us where we are today. I think it's going to be a great product. All right, authorized practice, and Bobby, we missed you earlier in the week. I will tell you that your vice chair very ably handled the meeting. She did a great job. I know she's glad you're back. So I'm not sure which one of you is going to give the report.
Takia graciously presided yesterday and has again graciously agreed with the documents.
I do what I can.
All right. We all work together.
Yesterday, we reviewed 15 complaints and inquiries for action. We issued 9 letters of caution, referred 1 matter to the disciplinary authority in another jurisdiction. We dismissed 4 matters, took no action on 2 matters. Staff registered 5 prepaid legal plans during the quarter, and staff registered 4 amendments to plans. And there are 2 action items. The committee recommends the council issue an order revoking the registration of legalpreneur membership. And the committee also recommends the council direct the secretary to issue a notice of show cause why the registration should not be revoked of East Carolina University Student Legal Services and Discount Legal Plan.
Yeah, we need motions on that. This is recommendations to the council.
So what we need are a motion to recommend these actions to the council. So do you want to take those separately or together?
We can take those together.
Is there anybody who wants to pull either of those for discussion? Any questions of Takia or any of the other members of the committee? All right, can I have a motion? I'm sorry, do you have a second?
Second, yes.
All right, speak up. All right, any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Takia, anything else?
Nothing else from me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Peter, I didn't mean to skip you. I mean, I don't love you. Legislative liaison report.
Well, we're back in session. So I'll see you guys at the end of the road. We're looking forward to a good year at the legislature. We're meeting with lawyer legislators. I've been working with some senators and speaking with them, and we're hopeful for a good session. But at the beginning of the session, there's always you never know which way it's going to go, and so we're going to be working on trying to get some of that financial flexibility and an increase of our dues cap. That does not mean we're seeking to raise the dues, just that flexibility for the future if necessary. We're also going to be looking at any of these issues that come out of any other subcommittees, and also just being aware of what might come from the legislature as it relates to reviews of licensing boards and agencies, because there's always the chance that comes up again. And so we will be calling upon you in the next quarter or two as we need to. I encourage you to reach out to your legislators as they have started their session to offer your support or yourself as a resource. But I'll also be reaching out with updates as we move forward. But they're out of session this week. They gavelled in and then they organized and they gavelled back out, and so they'll be coming back next week. And I'll be over there and we'll just kind of take it as it goes that way.
We're doing our January informal writing tomorrow.
I don't believe we're going to do our informal writing tomorrow. At least I haven't planned for it. So
Okay.
yeah.
Are we going to do it at some point?
I will try.
All right. Any questions of Peter? Next is, I believe, Darren.
Yep.
Issues committee.
So the Issues Committee met yesterday. It's repurposed, as you all know, because of the Legal Access Committee. We're not taking any of the Access to Justice Committee. We're not taking anything that deals with access to justice. We're allowing that committee to handle those items. We're going to look at 3 issues this year. So far, what we've agreed to send to subcommittee are the following. We're going to look at a proposed study of the random audit or trust accounts program. If you want more information about that, you can talk with me or one of the other, I guess Peter or Brian can fill you in on those. Essentially, we're going to look at how random audits are determined. There's been at least some complaints and probably some verification that some of the rural counties are getting hit more often than they should. But we're going to take a look at that and make sure that that's the problem. And if there is a problem, we're going to see if we can coordinate and design a solution for it. We're also going to look at have a proposed study of diversion programs. We already have essentially 2 diversion programs, although one's not really a diversion program. It's more of a go in here and see if you can work this out, and that's the Lawyer's Assistance Program. But we have the Trust Accounting Compliance Program. If you're on the Grievance Committee, you know about that. If you're not on the Grievance Committee, that's essentially a program that's been designed to help lawyers who have been referred to the Office of Counsel for complaints or violations of rules of professional conduct having to do with trust accounting. They have an opportunity to go into that program with the hopes of not receiving any discipline. We'll look and see if there's other deferral programs or diversion programs that we might need to look at. So we're going to have a subcommittee looking at that. And then the final thing is we're going to be studying facilitating the preparation of succession plans. That's a real issue, especially when we have to try to go out and hire attorneys to help close down practices of lawyers who have either become disabled or who are deceased. So we're going to look at that and see what kind of program we can put together, what kind of materials and assistance. And that's one thing that Evan was talking about with the PMBR also, was the succession planning. I think we talked about some of that. So if there are, these are 3 kind of heavy lifts, but we want to make our ability to regulate the practice of law better. We also want to be able to assist attorneys if we can, but more importantly, protect the public. If you have anything that you think is something that doesn't deal with access to justice that needs to be reviewed or you would like to see reviewed, if you'll send an email to Alice and I, just let us know, hey, this is something we think is interesting or we would like to see, then Alice and I can take it to the other officers and we can decide whether we want to move forward with that in the Issues Committee. So that's my report.
Thank you, and I really do want to thank you because historically the past presidents get to sort of kick back and do nothing, but we put him back to work, so we appreciate his.
But don't worry, other than this, he's done nothing.
Okay.
Clear.
We did have a hard time finding him from time to time.
I earned it. He did.
He did. But thank you. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
So our next report is from Mr. Smith, our Access to Justice Committee.
Thank you, Your Eminence. Access to Justice had a very lively and what I think a productive meeting yesterday. We received, thanks to Marcy, a report from the Florida Bar that I think was published in December of this past year that is extremely extensive. Some of the stuff we're ahead of the game on them. Some of the stuff we will probably be borrowing a little bit from them, but we've met with those guys, some great guys. In that same concept, we ran across a group out of Texas called the Texas Opportunity and Justice Incubator. And they have a much sexier acronym than PMBR. They're called TOJI. So we're looking forward to having the folks from TOJI speak to us probably in April. So we're hoping for that to happen. Legal Deserts continues to work thanks to the hard work of Alan and his committee. And they had some of the folks from the rural health, medical folks, come in and talk to us about how they got doctors to rural areas and to see if we could find ways on that. But we decided to move ahead on one thing, and that is the unbundled civil legal services. I keep referring to it as the low-hanging fruit because I think we can move on it relatively quickly, wherein you can pick and choose to be in a civil case, and the judges basically have to let you out. If you do civil litigation, that's not always the case. So it'll allow you to do either pro bono work or in some cases low bono work. So we're looking forward, there'll be a subcommittee formed on that. We heard a lot of what I consider great information from the help centers in both Wake and Mecklenburg, one of which just opened last week, I believe, and the fine work they're doing. And I think we're going to steal a lot of what they've done and try to promulgate it statewide. So a lot, drinking water from a fire hose, but I think we're going to get some stuff done.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions for Matt? That's an awesome committee, and I do feel a lot of energy in that room. True desire to help people that can't afford lawyers to have access to our court system. So a lot of hard work to come. If you have any ideas on that as well, get back in touch with Matt. All right, our next report would be from Anna, Communications Committee.
Hey, how are y'all? So I started out on the Issues Committee just this month and wanted to refocus myself on what we're supposed to do. And I had forgotten or never knew, Brian Peter told me it started as a social media committee, so I thought that was interesting. But just to focus on what we're supposed to do, our goal is to figure out what we want to communicate about the bar to the public and our members, and then secondly, how to communicate it. And so there's a couple things we've talked about in the past. We've been talking about message mapping, and we're going to continue to work on that to try to, first one will be try to figure out some sort of message map to counselors that they can then send to the members on all manner of issues. And we're going to do some meetings on Zoom between now and the next quarterly meeting to come up with some ideas on that. But the most interesting thing, and I think the most direct way, I mean, we've got YouTube channel, we've got Twitter, we've got, the live stream, but Peter and Brian mentioned we're going to revamp this is already in progress, not because of communications, but the website's going to be revamped. And honestly, that is probably the number one place everyone anywhere goes to first learn anything about the bar. So I think and I seriously doubt that'll happen in this year.
It's going to take a little time.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge project. But anyway, that's probably something that I think communications should have some input on, just ideas on the website, how it will function, how we can better communicate what we are and who we are to people. So essentially, in terms of that, I think we're still working on the message mapping. We're going to do some meeting about that. Some of the ideas that, I was thinking that we need to focus on is we've now broadened our ways to get things out to people with YouTube and various things and the publication that we do. But I would like to see more focus on how do we communicate our message when people really want to know what we do. Because usually most people, frankly, don't care, don't pay attention. But then when they need to care, it affects them. If they want to complain against a lawyer or they're the lawyer being complained against, suddenly they have developed a keen interest in what the bar can and can't do and that kind of thing. So I think for people that are interested in learning about the bar and what we do, I would like to make it clearer and easier to find that information. We have YouTube, but how do that goes back to the message mapping. How do we explain these concepts of who we are? So anyway, that's communications report.
Thank you, Anna. Peter, you want to add anything to that? Or
No,
Brian?
that was great.
Anybody have any questions for Anna or any of the committee members? Thank you. All right, so Catherine, I think it's your turn. Ethics?
Yes, for ethics, we have 2 proposed formal ethics opinions that will be for publication. The first one is about the sale or closure of a law practice and proper handling of aged client files. And the other one is about the imposition of confidentiality in settlement documents. So those will be for publications. If you're in districts 1 and 31, you are a random audit for the next quarter. And other than that, we have no action items.
It was a very good meeting. It's really interesting.
It's Murphy to me, of it. 1 to 30.
I guess Ann wanted to get her miles.
All right. Okay. All right. I think last but not least,
Is it me?
it's you.
All right.
But you're on my agenda anyway.
That's where, look at that, it's on mine too. At this moment, I'd like to move Madam President into closed session under NCGS 143-318.11 A2 to to prevent premature disclosure of an honorary degree, scholarship, or similar award, and under A5 for a discussion of compensation.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Give just a moment for clear.
You can, counselors.
Back our open session, and so Mr. Savage, would you like to continue with your report?
Thank you. Usually I would tell you about pending or presentations that we made during the past quarter. I'll tell you about those tomorrow. Some really great ones. We had a backlog of folks. Boy, that backlog is broken. We've been giving a lot of awards. With that said, Madam President, on behalf of the committee, I move that the executive committee approve the nominations discussed in closed session for presentation of the John B. McMillan Distinguished Service Award to the full council for approval, subject to our standard due diligence checks of candidate A and candidate B.
So do we need a motion? I need a second. All right. Any other questions or discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Todd, back to you.
All right, on motion, in the closed session, the Finance and Audit Committee, recommended, to the executive committee that it approve, the proposed salary increase for the executive director, Alice Mine, and the executive committee approved, that recommendation.
Well, that motion has to be done
We got to-
in the session.
We're gonna do the, also do the, yeah. And so now we're back in open session. We need a motion to approve the salary increase that we approved in closed session. So
Second.
Second. All right,
any further discussion?
all those in favor? Opposed? All right, thank you.
And now the last item would be that we vote to approve the proposed budget that we held off until we had this approval of the ED's compensation. And so the
Let's say that the
Finance and Audit
budget-
Committee recommends approval of the budget.
This is the one that was revised to increase the managed services line item, which I sent you an email about that yesterday with the revised budget. One line item increased by $50,000 to cover some cloud data transfer.
That is the recommendation of the Finance and Audit Committee.
So is, any other questions? Otherwise, is there, all those in favor of adoption of the budget, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, this is the most important item of the day on the agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Yes.